Hello, dear aquarists. Welcome to my study number 3 on Mycobacterium about betta fish, the Siamese fighting fish, and some other bacteria that I will discuss here on a study that's being published in India on a very interesting examination on the antibiotic resistance. Um, the bacteria that has infected the Siamese fighting fish. This study has been done in India, hasn't been done before. Usually the studies are done on other fish in Thailand or in America. But this case, I want to show you the study I got in hands. It was published in 2022. And the title is Detection of Mycobacterium marinum, multi-drug-resistant bacteria in a chronic progressive disease outbreak among Siamese fighting fish Betta splendens in India. I will give you below on the link the details where you can find back this report or this scientific study. We all know that the Siamese fighting fish is a very popular fish, and there have been increasing reports of infection in betta fish by bacterial and viral pathogens. Well, as you've seen in my cases I present on fish diseases, yes, I have found quite some bacterial infections in the betta fish. You can see it in my cases of gouramis and bettas. I will show you the link also below, where you can see more of my studies. And in this present study, the causative agents for a chronic infection in betta from a private farm in Kerala, India, were investigated. And in general, well, I continued reading the extract. It revealed that 7 different bacterial isolates, which I try to pronounce here, Aquitaliae, Acinetobacter bacillus, Acinetobacter klebsiella, and Iromonas were detected, and antibiotic susceptibility were used in this diffusing technique, revealed that all the bacteria except the Equitalia palogens were multi-drug resistant. I will show you the details, or you can find them yourself in the link below, but I will explain a little bit further on. It also revealed there was a presence of Mycobacterium marinum in the infected fish. And no viruses were detected, no absence of viral etiology so far this study revealed. And the study recommends frequent monitoring of betta farms for bacterial pathogens. Also, the study on their antibiotic resistance profiles and to do a proper management and better survey of the fish tanks. Yes, I explain that quite often in my studies, that you should do a good fish health management. Particularly, there is also not a concern that it can have an impact on human health. I'll explain later on in detail. Well, study was done in Kerala, India, during the period of January and March 2021. And the farm owner in Kerala had complained of uncoordinated swimming, weight loss of the bettas, reduced and grouped fins of the fish. So reduced means like fin rot or fin decay. Also, he reported chronic infection and consistent mortality of fish over 2 months. Well, this is typical for a bacterial infection, that there is a permanent loss and that there is a chronic infection going on. Moreover, antibiotics did not have an apparent effect on the disease control. This means he has been using antibiotics, but it didn't bring any success. So here are the materials they used for the identification and the collecting. I will not go in detail for you on that. Interested for you is, of course, the antibiotic resistance profiling. And you see they used quite a bit of antibiotics. 42 antibiotics were tested. And you can see here if there was a resistance, 100% means there's 100% resistance against amoxicillin, for instance, or against ampicillin of those bacterial strains that they were detected. There was no resistance against the carbapenem kind of antibiotics. This is a group of antibiotics which hardly been used in our ornamental industry, and it's not always recommended to use them. You have to ask your veterinarian for advice or your fish doctor. Some are really human medications which are only meant for human treatment, so not for fish. Interesting to notice also the quinolones and the fluoroquinolones like enrofloxacin or norfloxacin or seems to be having a good activity. No resistance has been found, so it has probably not been used in the fish farm. So that's a few indications on the resistance, because most of the other, like tetracycline, was 42% resistance. I will give you some more details here further on. Well, here, the antibiogram, the results. About 71% of the bacteria were resistant to, for example, trimethoprim, which is quite commonly used in our aquarium hobby and industry. About 75% of the bacteria were resistant to nitrofurantoin or furazolidone, which are commonly used. Well, you can see there's a lot of resistance. About 43% of the bacteria were resistant to oxytetracycline. About 28% of the isolates were resistant to streptomycin, erythromycin, sulfadiazine, chloramphenicol, and colistin, which are quite commonly used. Well, it's only 28%, but it is a resistance. And, well, however, all the isolates were sensitive to the drugs I mentioned above here, like the group like enrofloxacin or ofloxacin, gentamicin, meroprim. Here it's all in the green I indicated here. And this was particularly done on this group of bacteria, like I mentioned at the beginning, the Aquitale, the Acinetobacter, the Pseudomonas, the Bacillus, the Acinetobacter, the Klebsiella, Aeromonas ferroni. Well, quite some which are rather pathogenic for the fish and also can be pathogenic for humans, some of them. Here we see in detail the resistance. Here we see those 7 types of bacteria. And here we see the gray part where there is no resistance and the red part where there is a maximum of 100% resistance. So that's for you to go in detail. But anyway, ask your fish doctor, veterinarian for the proper use of antibiotics. They also found Mycobacterium. Since the infection was chronic and the Betta fish showed Mycobacterium specific clinical signs such as uncoordinated swimming, weight loss, and grouping of the fins, bacterium was screened using both culturable and unculturable methods. You can see here the methods they used to try to identify the Mycobacterium. I don't all agree with the typical symptoms because as I show in my cases, Mycobacterium has so multiple different signs or symptoms of disease outbreaks. Can be ulcers, can be bloat, can be raised scales, can be emaciation, skinny fish, or sometimes no symptoms. So difficult to say that's the reason they did it. I'm happy they did it anyway, because it's a good scientific study they did on that. And it's interesting that here they report that earlier there has been a report of the detection of Mycobacterium marinum, which is the one here they discuss, from the Twitter fish were discussed before, which had no clinical signs. See, like I said, sometimes no clinical signs. But they were associated with big belly and skin nodules syndromes in fish from Thailand. You can see the study of dung. Also other fish like Apistogramma, goldfish, angelfish, guppies, zebrafish by Masson or Kusar were detected in the studies. Also, several studies pointed out that here in red is a bacterium that is capable of causing severe zoonotic infections in human, but especially when there is immune compromised situation. I try to read it closely because I have to put it in bigger sign here where I can read it. It means that people have a poor immune system, or they have lesions or wounds. It means also immune depressive. If you have wounds, it means you have no protection, like your skin is a protector. But if you have a very bad immune system, well, it's like most of the diseases, you can get sick, not only from Mycobacterium, but also for others. And it's known by people working with fish and they have a very bad immune system. Well, you have to be careful when you have wounds. You have to do anyway. When you have wounds, to be careful when you work with fish. You have to disinfect your hands. You have to use soap or disinfectant after you work with the fish, particularly when you have lesions or mosquito bites or anything like that. But people have a weak immune system. It's known that, for instance, heavy smokers, which have a bad lung damage, can have serious problems. So this is some things you can see later on below in the article, in the references which are pointed out. Well, to conclude this study here, it provides basic information on the bacterial diversity and their antibiotic resistance profiles, which are important for fish disease management. Yes, it gives you a lesson what you can use as antibiotics, and also how to prevent by using a proper application of antibiotics. Be careful, don't just use them. However, the reason for the chronic infection in this case could be due to Mycobacterium marinum. Yes, Mycobacterium is a slow wasting away disease, so the fish are chronically getting sick and might have secondary bacterial infections from the several ones which were indicated before. So sometimes in many cases, I could say, we find a mix of bacterial infections, particularly with Mycobacterium. And the authors hypothesize here that not just Mycobacterium, but also other bacteria are antibiotic resistant, could cause zoonotic concern to aquarium handlers. Further experiments are required to confirm this hypothesis, and the study also warrants proper maintenance. It warrants proper maintenance and frequent survey of the fish tanks for non-tuberculous Mycobacteria. It's not tuberculosis, yes. Mycobacteria is causing fish tuberculosis, not tuberculosis like that we know as human tuberculosis. This is fish tuberculosis. It's hard to be eliminated, and vaccines are currently not available. So it highlights the potential of bacterial pathogens. So it's something you have to concern about. And read more articles if you want, particularly the one on dung has a good study on the Siamese betta fish. Kusar about Mycobacterium and aquarium fish. And well, this is something I could, and here, well, I didn't indicate it, Masson here, also by Mycobacterium and zebrafish. Well, this is something as a study I like to share with you. Sometimes I find them and interesting to quote to you, because I find bacteria in my cases of fish disease, and I discuss this quite often, that sometimes a laboratory is necessary to see what antibiotic resistance is involved. And just be careful by using antibiotics. Don't just use it when you see a fin rot. Try to do a proper examination. What is the cause of the fish disease? Use antibiotics carefully and ask advice from your veterinarian or your fish doctor. If you have any questions, please put your remarks down here below. Thank you for watching.